Well, whether for your home, for your business, whatever it is, energy is needed. And it doesn't look like energy costs are smiling right now, as they use that expression. So let's get into that all-important topic. We've talked about, petrol, which is another form of energy, but let's get into electricity. And as you may have seen there, we have two gentlemen joining us on the program this morning to get into this very thorny issue. Mr. Segun Ajayi-Kadir is the Director General, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. He joins us virtually from Lagos. And right next to him is Mr. Chuks Uwani, who's the MD CEO, Kensington Energy Limited, also joining us virtually from Lagos. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning. Thank you.
I know there's been a lot of talk about this. Yesterday, it looked like there was some conflicting report from one of the distribution companies. But let me begin with Mr. Ajayi-Kadir. This proposed electricity tariff hike from July, it looks like there's been some conflicting report. Can you give us an update, really? What do you know about this proposed tariff hike?
Okay, I think it came to us as a surprise because we didn't expect at this time. But what happened was that some of our members started receiving notices from the discos in Abuja, I think also in Lagos, and I guess Ibadan as well, that from July 1st, there was going to be an increase of about 40% in the tariff. And citing, I think, the strongest reason they gave was the fluctuating rate of the US dollar to Nigerian naira. And so that was necessitating an increase in the tariff that will be charged from the 1st of July. But only, I think yesterday evening, we heard that one of the discos, I think is the one in Abuja, has indicated that NEC has not really approved that increase. But generally what is believed by citizens and my members is that an increase is imminent and that they have been served due notice. Most of them have not received anything to the contrary. So what we know is that we are facing a possibility of a hike in the cost of one of the most vital in our cost structure. Like I said before, it constitutes between 20 to 40% of our cost structure, depending on how power intensive your company is. So it's a major worry for us, and we are eagerly looking forward to a definitive pronouncement on this, particularly from NEC, so that we can all face our business. As it is, we have too much problems in our hands to be distracted by this rather outrageous, unwarranted, and unexpected increase in electricity tariff.
So help us understand just how big this is. I mean, if you could take us deeper, because I know that we don't have a constant electricity supply. So manufacturers have to resort to diesel, which has, largely since been deregulated. So yes, the prices are high, but the recent subsidy removal has not quite affected the price of diesel. So with this hike in electricity tariff, which, by the way, as I said, you do not get consistently, it is not like 100%. I imagine even maybe you have to resort to generators for most of it. How does that tip the balance of your costs, really?
Yes, for starters, we spent about 144 billion naira in 2022 in the supply of alternative energy in industries. And like I indicated before, when your cost structure, an item on your cost structure is between 20 to 40%, it becomes a major worry. And for us in the manufacturing sector, the highest you could have, maybe if you are connected to the national grid normally, is to have between 6 to 9 hours of electricity supply in a day. Now, electricity is like blood. Electricity to an industry is like blood to an individual. You need it in every facet of your manufacturing. So what this does to our cost, to our competitiveness, is that it makes you, when you compare yourself with products that are coming from less cost-intensive economies, you are not able to compete in terms of price. Also, you are not able to fully utilize your capacity because instead of running 3 shifts, for instance, you need to run either 1 shift. And then you also have it's not only the lack of supply, the inadequacy of the supply and the quality of supply. You are not able to plan. You are not able to predict when you are going to have power. And when you do have power, sometimes they are not able to run some of your machines. Now, for you to appreciate this matter, you have to retain the same number of staff, whether you have power or you do not have power. So you have a lot of sunk cost that continues to impact on your bottom line. There is also the issue of you even being diverted. I'm a manufacturer. I'm not engaged in power generation. So instead of me to be able to rely on the experts who are supposed to manage the supply of electricity to me, I'm bothering and engaging people to manage my power. Now, this situation becomes compounded, and like you mentioned before, when you look at the price of diesel, without expectation and within a space of 1 month, we had a jump in the price of diesel by more than 200 to 50%, which means that even the alternative that we have is become prohibitive. If you look at this scenario and you factor in the small and medium scale enterprises that are barely surviving on very low margins, this will completely take them out of business. We've had quite a number of them now that have given indication that if we go ahead with this escalation in price, it is completely going to knock them off. Don't forget that it's coming at the same time where the exchange rate has worsened,
Right.
and we are now even having fuel subsidy removed. These are otherwise laudable government initiatives. But when you now juxtapose it with the current imminent hike, you can see that all the alternatives that will have given succor, not only to manufacturers but to individuals, have been eroded.
Okay.
And all of this is coming without consultation. There is no way of knowing that this increase is imminent. There is no way of determining how you are going to cope with it. And you have started the year with a projection.
And it would look like
you can do it.
Pardon me, it will look like now your head is being shaved in your absence, because as major stakeholders, you'll be expected that you'll have been a part of this whole process such that your side can be presented. We'll also talk about the Forex, which is also a major part of your business. But let's bring in Mr. Wani, because it will look like the electricity service providers are smiling to the bank now, while manufacturers are frowning at their account. So if you could speak to us, Mr. Wani, on some of the factors that are coming together. Yes, there's the main electricity service providers, the alternative service providers, which I imagine you operate in. Are you really smiling to the bank? But more importantly, what are the factors at play here? Because for a lot of people, manufacturers and consumers, they just wonder, just how much can we take, really?
Okay, thank you very much. You see, the issue of tariff adjustment, it has a regulatory framework, which has always been in place since 2008 under the regulation called the multi-year tariff order. So there are 2 forms of review: major review and minor review. Minor review is usually done every 6 months. And these are done to take into consideration some of the changes in the variables. The last review was done in December 2022. So the framework is there. So basically, what is taken into consideration is your cost component in terms of generation of this power, in terms of distribution of the power. So everybody in the value chain has to be able to keep these units running. In 2022, the Forex that was used to set the tariff was about 441. Today, we know that those numbers have changed. And of course, these equipments are being serviced in dollars. None of them is bought in naira. Even the gas pricing is in dollars, although paid in naira. Now, it requires more naira for you to be able to pay the same amount of for your gas the generation companies use in generating their power. So the regulations has always been there. It's just to follow it through. What I expect Manufacturers Association of Nigeria to have done is, knowing that these reviews are usually done every 6 months, is to engage the regulator in advance and be able to agree on all these parameters. What are the percentage change in these parameters so that we will know what is the right tariff adjustment? For me, it is not a tariff hike indeed, but a reflection of the market realities. So the electricity players are not making more money than they are making, because whatever money they are now addition is being making is being offset on the other end, meaning that their responsibility, their financial obligations, they have to meet it. So I believe that this is the best for the country in this circumstance.
But Mr. Wani, but Mr. Wani, that periodic review in itself, don't you think that there's a need for it to be more humane? Granted that the electricity managers themselves, service providers, must remain in business in the light of the circumstances, but then again, the consumers are the ones bearing the consequences, i.e., those receiving electricity in their homes, and the manufacturers. So that's six. Biannually periodic review, it's stifling for those who are paying for the service. Shouldn't it be reviewed?
You see, the trust of the matter is that, in as much as we want the prices to be very down to the lowest so that everybody could be able to afford it, but these units need to be on. It's just like telling a woman that sells tomato at Ojota, who buys a bag at 100 naira in the last 6 months, and she goes to the market and this price has increased to 200, and you want to force her to sell at 100. What happens eventually is that she ends up not providing the service, and that service will not be available. So basically, what the NEC has tried to do in circumstance is to ensure that this service is available. Remember, we've been complaining about the fact that after the privatization, nothing much has really improved in terms of service. If we go back to the memory lane, this very multi-year tariff order was supposed to be implemented immediately after the privatization in November 2013. The government came up with what we call interim rule provisions, which provided that the CBN has to provide some sort of backup to support the tariff deficit. Eventually, there was a change, tariff adjustment in 2015. But for some political exigencies, some classes of customers were frozen. So it now makes it impossible for the regulator to even enforce the contractual obligations that the stakeholders, the political players had. And that stunted investment into the sector. So currently, it was in 2020 that the last administration came up with the Power Sector Recovery Plan, which set up a kind of a trajectory in terms of giving assurance to investors to bring in their money and invest in this sector. Currently, the trust is coming back into the sector. Any kind of distortion in the market will kill that trust.
Mr. Wani, Mr. Wani, I'm glad you observed rightly yourself that, for some time there hasn't been improvement in the service delivery in that sector, which is what a lot of consumers are talking about, that they're not getting what they're paying for. So again, what's the justification for this tariff increase, going by the number of times that Nigerians are counting the collapse of the power grid, or the power grid generating 0 megawatts for a certain period?
Okay, if we go back to 2022, when the adjustment had, the tariff payment was reset into a service-based, meaning that there are categories in terms of how much supply you receive in a day. We have band A, we have band B, we have band C, we have band D, and band E. NEC structure this tariff structure in such a manner to ensure that the consumers, if you are getting more power, like those in 20 hours is under band A. So there is a tariff structure for this class. And if you're on band A and you're unable to get power for 20 hours successfully for 2 months, there is also a process that you can apply to NEC and say, look, we are not getting this service based on the number of hours that the service operator committed that they will be providing to us. So NEC is going to trigger a process that will revert you to the exact band based on the number of hours you are receiving. So basically what NEC has tried to do is to make sure that the consumers who are receiving more number of hours are able to pay more based on service.
Right.
So it helps in terms of ensuring that customers enjoy more power and pay more.
Right. So, I mean, we're due for a break, gentlemen. Mr. Ajayi Kadir earlier was given the average time that they get power between 6 and 9 hours. So clearly I don't think there's any enjoyment in that one. But we'll come back to some of the issues raised. It looks like you're saying, Mr. Wani, that NERC has not given that approval. So the tariffs will stay as they are come July. But these are questions that will be taken up. My colleagues in Abuja as well have for you in a moment. So please stay with us. You're welcome back. We're still talking that all-important matter, electricity supply. And it looks like as it stands right now, and judging from that statement from the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, the tariff hike has been suspended or has not been approved. But we have two gentlemen whom have been speaking with us. By the way, we reached out to NERC, that's the Electricity Regulatory Commission, to tell Nigerians what exactly is going on. But clearly, they're yet to respond. But as soon as they do, we'll have them on this show to speak to Nigerians on this. But let's head over to our Abuja studios now for more questions. Guys.
Thank you, Kayode. Let me start with Mr. Segun Ajayi Kadir, who's the Director General of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Mr. Kadir, I'm sure you've heard the explanation of Mr. Chuks Wani talking about how, the facilities that even produce electricity are serviced in dollars. Some of the components that go into it are also done in dollars. And we all know what has happened with the float of the Naira. For you now, understanding also that they too are a business and they need to survive, how would you suggest that government comes in? Because at the end of the day, all of this will boil down to government. First and foremost, do you think that there are any market solutions to balancing this eventually? Or do you think that we actually need another intervention by government?
Thank you very much, because you asked whether I had him. And it's a good thing to know that he is also aware that they are not the only one in business. We are also in business to make profit. But if you permit me, I would like to borrow from what he said. He gave the example of a woman selling tomato. And you don't expect her to sell at a lower price or a constant price when the supply is high. But we are talking of a woman here that is selling a bad tomato. And so you wouldn't expect the buyer, to be enthusiastic about paying more. The indication between 2021 and 2022, the revenue of the discos increased by 20%. Around the same time, their supply dropped by 12%. These are the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics figures. The number of metered consumers is far lower than those that are estimated. So, and this is a familiar excuse they have always given. It has not been met by commensurate improvement in power. So I think we shouldn't believe them. It is only when you are able to get value for money that an increase in price is justified. We are all businessmen. We cannot pass on this cost And which costs are you reflecting? I mean, it is cost of inefficiency, ineffective supply, and lack of supply. I've just told you that I'm paying, and many of our members are estimated, are billed in an estimated manner. And you have not controverted the fact that we have supply between 6 to 9 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours. And many of them are, so we are paying for services not rendered. You cannot allude to fluctuation in value of the currency because it's facing everybody. But I mean, what we do expect is that I will even borrow again from him that because of political exigency at some point, they had to drop the increase. That political exigency exists now and is being further made necessary by the environment that surrounds this increase. We've just had the attempted unification of the exchange rate. We've just had the removal of subsidy. We are yet to have an increase in salary of workers. The world is still suffering the effect of Russia-Ukraine war. And there are so many other factors that have continued to limit the performance of business. So apart from political exigency, there's an economic exigency here. An administration has just come in less than 1 month. You don't greet the citizens with this kind of increase. So what we expect, as a matter of fact, is that this increase, well, now it's good to hear that NEC is saying approval has not been given. NEC should simply not give that approval. What I think the narrative...
Mr. Kadiri, you know, some people will say that there are different players and different, and this is not me in any case, in any way, you know, asking or making a case for, you know, electricity tariff increment. I'm just trying to lay out the facts as they are. We know that there are different players playing in different sectors of the power supply chain, those in the generation, those in transmission, and those in distribution. And oftentimes, customers deal more with those in distribution. They tend to vent their frustrations more with those in distribution. Now, I'm not very sure or very certain where Mr. Wani plays, but my guess is that he might be playing, because I'm looking at where Kensington Energy Limited falls on that. And from what I'm saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm saying is that you might be playing in the generation aspect of things. Do you think that we should have this one-size-fits-all approach, given that some other areas, some people in the generation sector, we've been talking about how generation has been doing its work as effectively as it can, but oftentimes the weakling comes in transmission and also comes in distribution, but the people in generation need to be paid. We've seen federal government intervention several times in that area, and them saying, look, we can do this no longer. Discos will have to do their jobs. Do you really think that we need to take this one-size-fits-all approach?
Okay, you know, for me, as a manufacturer, the person who is going to buy my product on the shelf does not give a damn how my factory looks. He sees the final product, it will be effective, it is safe, it will satisfy his or her taste, and he or she buys. So the discos should deal with the problems that they have, just like I'm dealing with mine. If there's problem in generation, there's problem in transmission, then the person who is distributing should deal with it. That's how I deal with my problem. And I'm a businessman. I must have done my business projections, calculations, and modules. So they should maintain their lane, we maintain our lane. I mean, you should deal with your issues. You don't bring it to me as a basic. What am I going to do about it?
So let me ask you then. Let me ask you, because from what we saw from that memo passed around by AEDC, and I don't know if there have been other distribution companies who have also made such a memo. Can you tell us under what band a lot of your manufacturers are supposed to fall under? Because we know that different price bands were proposed for different, different tariff bands were proposed for different consumers, different bands of consumers. At what band would you say that your your own people fall under, and are they usually given as much? Well, we know that people that get between, is it 18 and 24 hours are supposed to pay a certain price. Those that get between 12 and 18 hours a day should pay another price, and those underneath those bands, you know, are supposed to get another price. Where would you say your most of your clients, or let's say most of your members fall? And, you know, do they usually get as much supply as they're supposed to be getting?
Okay, you see, in MAN, we normally conduct survey to gauge the average supply of electricity. By the way, we are 3D customers. I hope that is what is called, and we are the heavy users. I'm sure he will correct me if I'm wrong, but we are the heaviest, if I may use the word, users of electricity. I mean, some of our member companies cannot even use generators. Those that are in steel, they are heavy users. And I'm sure you could correct me also if I'm wrong, more than 60% of their revenue is collected from those manufacturing industries. So we are heavy users, and we are in the categories of people who should normally enjoy power for a longer period. But the report I'm getting from my survey is that we are not. And that's why we are screaming. Look, if we get adequate supply, we will always rationalize it, saying that it is always better to get, to pay higher prices for electricity supply from the national grid, from the discos, than to buy diesel and resort to all forms of self-generation of power, if we are getting adequate supply. But what I'm saying is that we are not getting. If I'm supposed to get 20 hours supply and I'm getting only 10 and 11, and I'm paying for it, it's not sustainable. I mean, we are not power generators, and we have to pass this cost to consumers. At the end of the day, imported products are beating me in the marketplace, in the domestic markets. So, I mean, these are serious considerations for competitiveness. And it's no longer possible for you to just pass on this cost, because the average customer is having purchase apathy. The disposable income is low. It's spending more on so many other needs that it has. If they prioritize, I'm out of business.
So let me ask Mr. Wani then. I mean, listening to all that you have said in terms of what you get as a... Well, I don't know if Mr. Wani can hear me. Mr. Wani, I'm sure you have listened very extensively to Mr. Segun Ajayi-Kadiri and his concerns about an increase in tariff and what that would mean for many manufacturers of Nigeria, of Nigeria. Can you tell us, you know, what conversations are currently happening within your own sector, first to ensure that there is some level of customer satisfaction? Because it would seem that underneath the complaints that they have, the chief complaint is that so far, banned or no banned, the amount of electricity they're supposed to get, you know, for a number of hours has still not been satisfied.
Thank you, Mark. I share the sentiments. I share the pains of the man as the engine room that keeps the economy running. I agree with him. They are the MD customers which actually pay. They are the major consumers of electricity, and they are actually prioritized in terms of availability. I'm aware that most of the MDs are actually on the tier 1, which is the band A, and they're expected to get at least 20 hours of supply. Most of them, especially the steel company, like he mentioned, are actually directly connected to 132 kV, which is TCN, directly from the TCN, that even assured much more reliability up to, I mean, it could go on for months without turning off, except the total grid collapse. The few other ones that are on 33 kVA feeders, I'm aware, gets at least 18 hours supply. So basically, at this time, this adjustment really has to happen. The reason being that we are now getting some form of support, some form of interest in investing in the power sector, because for the past 24 months, there has been a consistent implementation of this MITO review, which has now brought back the policy trust deficit, the policy trust that have been in the sector. I listened to Peter Selo during your last interview. He mentioned about that investors they don't trust the government. There is that deficit there. And that's what has happened between 2015 and 2020, when NEC has not been able to implement some of these regulations. Most of the capital that were available to invest, to upgrade this network, to provide meters, to provide more power, to invest on the transmission network, all of them were just waiting to know whether government is going to play by its own rules. Recently, with the passing of the Electric Power Sector Reform Act as amended, that enthusiasm is back. Money is now trying to flow back into the sector. So if you stop it, that money will take a back step and now start waiting. So whatever gain we have made in the last 2 years, we will lose up to the last 10 years. So my take in the instance is that government could be able to find another mechanisms in order to support man, to make them competitive in the market, but not stopping a regulation, implementation of a regulation that has been consistent, that is now bringing back investment momentum into the sector. Of course, he complained about the lack of power supply. It's a process. It's not an one-day thing. It's a process that required consistent investment on the entire value chain, from the gas to the generation to the distribution down to the meter suppliers. You see, recently, the MAP had come and said, look, we can no longer supply meters. The reason being, the amount that was approved for this meter, all the variables have gone with haywire. We were expected to be getting our dollars at 4.15, 4.40 at the import-exporters window. Now it's about 7 something. It's no longer sustainable, and we can't supply these meters. Those who are providing the transformers, I say, look, the contract you gave me to provide transformers, it can no longer work. So we need to take into consideration all this and build on this momentum so that we don't lose all the gains we've made in the last 2 years. However, government can find another approach in order to support the man, to make them competitive in the market, because they have to be competitive in the market.
We have to wind down now, but essentially you're saying even meter supply, transformer supply has stopped. Is that what you're saying? Okay, Mr. Wani, I'm not sure if you can hear me. I'm trying to just get clarity on that point you made about meter supply and transformer supply. You're saying that it's been put on hold as a result of the forex rates.
Okay, yes, I said that, look, they have come back and said, look, the price, there is a fixed price for certain type of meters, single phase, three phase, and MD meters. So some of the variables that affect the pricing is the FX. And we know when these prices were approved for them, what was used to make those approval was about 415 naira per dollar.
I just wanted to get a sense, just to be clear, I heard you well, to know the issues we have on our hands. But because of time, we have to wind down. Let me just ask Mr. Ajayi Kadri on a final note. First, Mr. Wani said that for manufacturers, they're meant to be on tier 1, I think band A, expected to get at least 20 hours of electricity supply. Can you confirm that any of your members indeed get 20 hours electricity supply daily, just as we wind down now?
Well, okay, thank you. I think that if you are enjoying 20 hours supply, I won't be on this program saying what I'm saying. And I like the way he has recognized that manufacturing is critical. it is a strategic choice for every government to make. And that's why we must not be encumbered by this increase that is coming. I didn't come here to lament every other challenge that I face. I've not spoken to you about how insecurity is affecting me. I've not spoken about how multiplicity of taxes and levies are affecting me, how I cannot pick up my containers at the port, how I'm being harassed by regulatory agencies. Everybody carries his own baggage. But what we are saying is that you need to get value for money, which we are not getting. And this excuse you are giving, we've been hearing it for more than 2 decades. And the thing is that you are smiling to the bank. My members are closing shop. We lost 274 members in a period of 5 years. And these people employ labor. I mean, they are supposed to contribute to national wealth. So I believe that there has to be a conversation that takes us away from this increase, particularly at this time. There's bad timing, and it's an unjust escalation, because you have to get value for what you produce. I cannot go to the market and tell my consumers, okay, please don't mind, this is a bad product, but please buy it because I'm suffering, I have so many challenges. Right. I think we should take the conversation away from your problem and then talking about your service delivery.
Okay. Very important point there.
Because if I'm not metered, and I've given you the fact that about 5.9 million people are not metered in Nigeria. So which means that whether they get power or not, they pay.
Okay, Mr. Ajayi, we have to anchor at that point, but clearly the conversation is far from over. It looks like the NERC has put this on hold, or at least has not given a full green light on this, judging by that statement we saw. But we'll have to thank you so much. The conversation is on. We expect to get the NERC on the show to speak to this. But Mr. Segun Ajayi, Director General, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, thank you so much for your time, as well as Mr. Chuksawani, NBCO, Kensington Energy Limited. Thank you, gentlemen, for giving us more insight into this particular issue.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's take your mails now. Lots of them have been coming in. I'll take this first one from Thomas Odejide, and it's on subsidy. Oh, yes. Apart or in addition to mentioning names of people who have been sucking Nigeria dry through fake subsidy, I will suggest that these people be made to vomit what they have swallowed. They can be given the chance to do so in repentance and may thus not have to suffer too much shame. Thanks, he says.
And Pastor Law Alpha Cross is also speaking in the same vein, and he says, during the oil subsidy regime, it has been discovered that it provided the conduit pipe through which many highly placed Nigerians amassed wealth for themselves with our national patrimony. Let government set up a probe panel to look into the value chain.
Well, Festus Akimboyewa says, whilst there's no doubt that oil subsidy benefits the richest few percentage of our population and it's a cesspool for corruption, the cost of transportation for a majority of Nigerians since the subsidy was removed is debilitating. Government must act quickly to help the poorest people in our country because the economic inequality arising from the oil subsidy removal is huge.
And finally, Kingsley Oshinowo says Nigeria is driving towards a pure market economy. The government can't completely allow the invincible hands of demand and supply to determine prices in all public goods consumption because of affordability. Electricity tariff will further increase hardship. When it comes to conversations around fuel subsidy or anything consumable in Nigeria, there is no end to it. I will definitely keep tabs on what's happening around there and keep you updated. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of your morning. I'm Neo Tagwe.
Thank you. Make sure that you keep your head up regardless of whatever is happening around you. I'm Malkwe Yusuf. Thank you for watching.
And from this side, we say thank you very much for allowing us being a part of your morning, and enjoy the rest of your day. I am Bukola Koka.
Let me just reecho the words of the president. Let the poor breathe. Don't suffocate them. I'm Kaido Kikilo. Have a great day.